All right, welcome, family. Welcome. You're here once again on my YouTube channel, and I am excited. Listen, what I need you to do before we even get started, because this is going to be an awesome interview. I got somebody here that you need to hear. But before we do that, before I introduce him, I want you to go ahead and share this to as many people as you know, whether they're martial arts or not. They're going to get something here. They're going to get something from this interview, and I want you to take the opportunity at this time to share this page, this podcast with everybody that you can. All right, but I'm gonna get started while you're doing that. Listen, everyone, Grandmaster Abdul Aziz Muhammad, formerly known as Grandmaster Anthony Muhammad, and I'm still known in many circles, of course, as Grandmaster Anthony Muhammad. And I wanted to welcome you to our podcast. Now, the podcast is called Walking with a Master. Now, it's based on our walk and many of our walks with a great master. And the great master that we're talking about today is Dr. Moses Powell. And Dr. Moses Powell is a great individual, and we want to share our walk with him. But I want you to know, all of you, I want you to know that I'm going to enjoy the walk with the master that is on this podcast today, and I want you to enjoy him. His name is Professor Randy DeWitt Scott, and man, let me just tell you, not only is he a master, but he was my master. He was my sensei, and I'm gonna talk a lot about that in just a moment. Welcome, Randy. Welcome, Professor. How are you?
Doing quite well, Jim. Blessed to be amongst the living.
Man, it is definitely a blessing to be amongst the living, because so many are experiencing so many situations at this time, facing so much at this time. Really, the worst that I've even heard of in our world, going on right now. So great to have you on. Let me tell you all a little something here. Now, this brother is someone, when I was in my youth, and in fact, he was a youth, but he was older than us, but he had great responsibility that he was given, and we're going to delve into that a little bit. So, what we do is, we operate off of the tree, Professor Randy. We operate off of the tree, and we want to go to the root first. So your root in this art and with Doc, tell me a little bit, bring us to how you got involved with Dr. Moses Powell.
Well, first of all, let me start by saying it wasn't by choice, it was by fate. Doc, as we call him, Musa, was dating my sister.
Oh, wow. Okay.
And as a result of me being born, actually accompanied my parents in bringing me home from the hospital. Subsequent to his entourage with my sister, he had a responsibility dealt to him by my parents to watch over me while he was dealing with my sister. So subsequently, over the course of years, I spent an enormous amount of time with him, unbeknownst to myself, watching him in various scenarios, whether it be training or otherwise. And I was introduced to the dojo at a very, very young age, before I knew who I was. And for anyone who was around over the last, I'd say 50 years, for which we had history with Doc, his saying to me was, "Randy, how long have I known you?" And my response would be, "All my life." "And how long have you known me?" And my response would be, "All my life." So that was the standing joke in the dojo before he touched me. So,
awesome.
All of the old professors and grandmasters who was around in those days, they remember that story well. And I'm thankful that I was honored and blessed to be around very early in Doc's development of the lineage of Sanukis.
Yes, yes, awesome, awesome. And so when you got started, where were you, or where was Doc in terms of the location? And he was teaching and whatnot. Where were you?
Doc was basically branched out in Linden Boulevard at the bathhouse, and we used to train over there. And then eventually, he migrated to Harlem. He had schools in Brooklyn, he had a school in the Bronx, but basically Brooklyn and Harlem were his bases. And because I was a young fellow, me traveling back and forth to Brooklyn was a challenge. So a lot of times, the majority of my time was in Brooklyn as well, Lower Manhattan.
Okay, okay. And so try to identify years. You started, of course, like you said, in the beginning of your life.
Right.
So when did you really remember some formal training?
Formal training was, I would say, about age 8. That was probably in the early 60s, very early 60s, where Musa and Soke Littlejohn I'm talking about, Lumumba, Big O, Hudson, all these guys, and Sugar, Robert Crossing, took me under their wing and formally touched me almost every day. And because I was a protege, I was expected to rise to the level that the seniors were performing. So there was no mercy given to me. So when we had to get down on our knuckles and do push-ups, and when we got touched, we got touched. And when I got thrown, I got thrown. When there was no mats at that time, we had very little mats to fall on. So wood and concrete, we had to break our fall. So it was, I would say, in the early 60s. And religiously from the early 60s, I would say to the 80s, I was there almost, I want to say 4 out of 6 days or 4 out of 7 days training from sunrise to sunset. We didn't train for 2 or 3 hours. We trained.
That's right. That's right. That's right. That was excellent. And when we came together, like for myself, the first one that actually shared training with me when it comes to Doc. I had some karate training, which was just a little. I had some training with Shirinji Kempo, and it was just up to yellow belt, but it was through Muhammad University. But then there was some change that happened, and Brother Van, who was teaching us the karate, didn't come anymore, and a brother Leon, do you remember? He was a brown belt.
Brown belt, yeah.
And he came and he started teaching at Muhammad University on behalf of Doc back in the day. And from there, I was introduced to moving. Matter of fact, we had another class up in Harlem where it was who was there first, from my memory, was what is his name? You actually replaced him, and Cecil Usher, right? Cecil Usher.
Right.
Yeah, and you replaced him, and the reason that you came, or Doc sent you, and I'd like to hear that, but the reason that happened is because he was doing some things with us. We're young and whatnot, and he saw the promise in a couple of us, and he used to practice doing things for himself, like how he would perform some techniques. And I remember exactly what happened, where we were doing a flying rollout, and he was working on timing his cutting us out from the front. We're coming forward, but he was cutting our legs back from the front, and actually kind of undershot it and caused some injury a little bit.
That's
So
exactly.
it was made aware. Doc was made aware, and then you came up. So what I want to get from you is, what was the conversation that Doc gave to you that you came? Because I remember a little conversation that you had with Cecil too.
Right. That's right. Yeah, me and Cecil had a very testy conversation.
I was there. That's
As,
right.
as I said, I was the youngest one in the class at that time, but I was put in a position where I had to almost fight for my life with the older brothers because there was no mercy. In those days, when you touch somebody, you touch. If you couldn't block,
Yes.
you couldn't protect yourself, you got tagged. And if you got tagged, you got tagged. It was nobody was going to hold your hand. And as people at that time was also the Barbados bodybuilding champion at that time. So his approach was very rigid, and he was insensitive. And when he would tag people, he would tag you. And Musa would soften him up a little bit, if you know what I mean. But me and him had a lot of confrontation. Anyway, to make a long story short, Musa sat me down and said, Randy, he says, he is not teaching, he is hurting. You cannot teach a student if you're hurting a student. You touch him and let him feel it, but you do not harm or hurt. We do not engage in the art of punishing people only to defend ourselves when confronted. Then there's no mercy at that point. So he saw promise, and you and about 5 other students, and because there was not that much of an age difference between us, and he said he liked the way that we worked together because we would work together. And at that time, he said, I want you to spend more time with now UGM and a couple of your compadres and sort of veer them away from Cecil. Cecil was appropriate in the appropriate setting, but not in terms of teaching you guys.
Yes,
I think
sir.
that's the best way to put it. And Moses put that responsibility on me and told me, what to do. And also, Soki was also over my shoulder watching me also to make sure that I was giving you guys what y'all need to have. And I took great pride and honor in spending time with you and your team. Because at that time, we was doing a lot of training for the FOI. So there was divisions. So not only did I have you guys, but I had some of the older FOI, I had Captain Carr and a couple other guys whose names I won't mention.
Yes, sir.
So we went through the ranks, and we gave the best that we could.
Yeah. Well, I have to absolutely concur, because it's that foundation that I received, which was impeccable to me, and how I've been able to develop from that is all based on that foundation. So I have to just publicly thank you and let you know that I don't have any issue with anything that happened back in them days, because it was really wonderful. I enjoyed every part of it,
Yeah.
all of that, coming into the dojo, and it was cold outside, and it was just a couple people came in and they wanted to get some information or whatever, and I and somebody else were there, and hands still, cold from the outside, and Tony, get up in the air, flying free Yukimi on the floor,
Right.
and but that was what made us, and it was great.
The beauty is that, and correct me if I'm wrong, I never had y'all do anything that I didn't do with you or first.
That's right.
Whatever we trained on, not only did I demonstrate it, I did it alongside y'all. So I worked twice as hard to make sure that y'all got the best that I could offer through Soke and Musa. because that's how I was trained. I was
Yes.
trained each one teach one. You demonstrate, you touch, you let everyone feel, and then you do it with them. And that started from the time that you stepped on the mat to the time that you walked. So not only were you drenched with sweat, so was I. Not only were you sore, so was I. So that's
Yes.
training that we came through that time period.
Excellent, excellent. What I want to do is I want to get let's kind of go into um, uh, some of those. I want you to mention some of the names of the past masters. You know, like Chuck and Pedrito and you know, just others. You know,
Yes.
that was around. If you could mention some of them,
Oh,
because I mean there are a lot of people around today that didn't quite get the the touching that you're talking about in the heyday of Doc. And it doesn't really mean that they're not good and whatnot, because I'm a stickler for respecting elders,
yes.
respecting the lineage, respecting
Yes.
the elder brothers that took the hard knocks when they were really hard.
Yes.
So anyway, why don't you go into just some of them, and if you have any particular thoughts on any of them in particular, because many of them have passed and whatnot, but please share.
Well, of course, I dare not start with anyone but Soki.
Oh, absolutely.
Um, to him, I give everything that I owe to the arts via Professor. Soki was and is and will always be Musa's #1 student. And as far as it kept was a challenge to Musa with Professor V. Because I remember the days when there were closed door sessions with Musa, Soke, and just a couple of us. And I was privileged to be in some of those scenarios. Lamoma, Robert Sugar Crossing, Hudson. These were some of the guys who, and Pedro, were in that small cadre of students that got what we call the core training. And it started from that lineage from Musa down to Soki. And Soki would be touched by Musa, and then he would touch us, which would in turn go down the line. So,
Yes.
and once again, he would not only demonstrate, but would do exactly what we did. So it was a rites of lineage that you taught, you touched, and you performed to make sure that the techniques were complete and thorough. Also counters. In those days, we learned a lot of counters to techniques, to various attacks that would be countered by somebody else, and we would counter their counters. So to that, we owe Soki and all of the due respect and intelligence that he brought to the arts. I would say after that, the people who would be Pedro, Lumumba, and Sugar Crossing, and then me, and that cadre. So that's where it originated from, and that's where the platform, I would say the upper platform, was sustained for many years. We had a lot of people come through, like Luis Delgado, and a lot of other people who float through there. But that was the people who held the core of Salukis.
Yes, yes. Well, that's great because Doc was known, and everyone that came through had to maintain the reputation that Doc displayed, that he represented and whatnot. I remember an article in black belt. I think it was black belt, not Karate Illustrated, which one of them. And it was Chuck Norris being asked a question, and the question was, could you beat Moses Powell? And he didn't say no, but I'll tell you, he said it like this. And I thought that this was even better than saying yes. He said, well, I'll just say it this way. I wouldn't want to meet him in an alley.
That's exactly the phrase that was.
And I was like, that was cold. That's like, you don't get that kind of answer.
That's
you don't get just that kind of answer. So it was really, really a powerful piece, So we have to represent and maintain that, and I've always seen that in all of you, and I never considered that anyone was less responsible to be able to do that. Now, again, many on those early ones on a different level, but I never saw any deviation in it, even though we know everyone is human and there are faults and frailties. It wasn't displayed, it wasn't clear. What was clear is that you were under that man who was an icon in the art to many, many systems and whatnot. So it's just exciting.
Right.
So in terms of your life, and let's go there with you and myself. I first got to say that I agree with you wholeheartedly when it comes to Soke. Soke was, he was recognized in my eyes. He was a terror.
My eyes also. My eyes as well.
I tell you, I've seen Soke used to be around and on the mat and whatnot, but I didn't have any real conversation at all, because it was like, if you ask the question, you may get ripped into pieces. It was just that kind of, he had that air about him that he was no nonsense, and it didn't happen until a situation that happened with me and another black belt, so I started following the line of going out and competing in competition. Mm-hmm. So Doc he was really something, because he would always test people in various ways. He would test you. He would say something to you that say, you can beat him or whatever. and see, and see if you had the ego that was so big that you try it, because it didn't matter to him. Right. If who was successful out of it, there was going to be a lesson learned on both sides. Both sides. Right. Yeah, so that was really, really something. But when I was young, not a teen yet, and we were studying, or maybe at that time, maybe it was a early teen, but we were studying with you. It was great. We had a wonderful time. In fact, you know what? You may not remember it, probably not, of course, because it was something for me. But when we did the Apollo, you remember the children of Sanukis? Yeah, and you had us, and there was a brother. I missed a test, so I wasn't there, but there was a brother named Tobias.
Yes, I remember Tobias.
And Tobias had earned his yellow belt through whatever the test was, but we were there, and he upset you in terms of how he was acting, and you took his belt and gave it to me. He said, "Tony, here, take this belt. That's yours now." And I went out with that belt on stage. But we were led out in that on there. Do you remember that show?
Yes. I do remember that. And it goes to the point that I've always stressed, that to be a man of martial arts, you have to think of all times, and you have to carry yourself with humility and seriousness. And at that time, not to stress on Tobias, but a lot of people were caught up on belts. And if you remember, lots of times I didn't wear a belt. I didn't care about a belt because it was all about being on the mat and being able to defend yourself. So a belt doesn't mean anything in a fight. And if the head is not in the right place, then you've already lost the fight. So you know, I wanted to stress that no one could hurt you unless you allowed yourself to be hurt. If you were not on your game and not paying attention, because what we gave you would be enough to at least to protect yourself and win the fight, you know. So it was that in that mind frame that I wanted to stress the seriousness that had been stressed to me from Doc and Soke and people like that. So that I remember that incident well amongst a couple other incidents. But yes.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. And in terms of your the concepts or things that you wanted to make sure that the youth got, tell me your thoughts and as it relates to everyone that you were training in terms of the youth in particular at this time. What your thoughts were and what were you trying to impart to us?
I was trying to impart that a fight is serious. You only get one good shot at defending yourself and protecting yourself. And that once you were engaged in any type of confrontation was to immediately be in a frame of mind that your life is on the line. And that if anyone were to engage you, you need to be prepared, at least mentally, because we was preparing you physically to defend yourself and to take it seriously and not to be playing with this. So that's, that's the same kind of mindset still exists today, that when you're engaged, you're engaged. And that's the way I wanted to leave you guys. I would leave you guys busted up, but that's so, I always say, but so that nobody else could do it. If you remember that. So that nobody else could do that to you. You know, I think of times when there was a couple scenarios where I had been touched and my heart had been hurt because I felt that I was not strong enough, and Musa would put me right back in there. He said, get back in there and finish the fight. And that's how I had you guys. I would always make sure that y'all finished the fight, because it was crucial that once you start a fight, that you finish it, and you'd always watch your back. That was another thing. Always watch, always be aware of your surroundings, on your peripheral vision and what's behind you. Always be consciously aware. So those were the things that I wanted to impart upon you guys, as they were imparted upon me, you know.
Yes, excellent. To bring back some of the things, you know, just for the audience, for all of you out there, that the kind of training that we were getting back then, today, today they would say that it's abuse.
It'll be illegal. It'll be illegal.
Yeah, they would say that, but you know, today they have changed society. So you're like, for instance, I remember one of the things that you would have us do, because it was something that you were taught and all of that, but we learned how to handle pain and various things, but like, again, not the hurt, not the pain that causes injury, right, but the pain that causes development. I don't know if you remember that we would be in a line, and you would put everyone on that level. I think we were in the teens at that point, early teens, and we would be put in a choke, unconscious, you know, and you're in a line coming to be given that pressure to a certain point, and then brought back, and that line keep going around. So you you learned the reality of that kind of thing, how we learned it.
Yes.
Today, we couldn't do anything like that, right now. But they can't. That's why today they're not the same as we were. They're not made in the same way, but it's a beautiful thing. So we had a lot of things. So I remember blindfold, when we would all do the blindfold, and the lights out. Yes.
Lock the door, put the lights out.
That's right. That's right. And we would have multiple fighting going on in the dark. And I remember Big John, John, one of my partners in Brooklyn, he had did a sidekick to somebody and put him in the wall, and that was a big thing that we had, laughing about somebody getting their behind kicked into the wall. Mm-hmm. And so I'm talking about his buddies through the plaster. So it was great. So I had such a good time with you, man. Really love you for taking me through that and whatnot. Now we trained. So tell me about, you're now an educated, and you have practiced in the area of medicine for a number of years. Kind of tell me that transition, and how long have you been doing it, and where are you right now?
Okay, well, in 1977, I was approached by Columbia University, where they started a new medical discipline called physician assistant program. It's complemented by what's called a nurse practitioner program, where there was a shortage of physicians and a need to fill the medical vacuum, where you had medical corpsmen in the past, but did not have the level of education that was needed to function in everyday society to fulfill the shortages of physicians. So I was engaged in that, and that's what attracted me, and that's why I left teaching to become a PA, and I've been a PA for 43 years now. I've just retired, and that encompassed about 28 years of private practice, 15 years of emergency medicine, and a couple other subspecialties for which I've been involved in. So people say, well, why didn't you go to med school? At that time, the opportunity wasn't available, but the opportunity to become a PA to act in light of a physician was very active. And many times I was recognized under that title, even though I didn't legally have that title, but I performed in that role, as do a lot of nurse practitioners and PAs. So I tilted my vocation toward teaching medicine and stuff like that. Now more so educated, now retirement.
Beautiful. So, did you see, let me ask you, how did your training in the art help you in any kind of way? Can you give us any kind of relationship?
Sure. There's a direct correlation between trauma and medicine. Trauma and pain go hand in hand. So you'd be surprised through nerve blocks and trauma, what and how it affects the body, both physically and psychologically, where you can get a shortening of nerve impulses and nerve thoughts through trauma, and also trauma and how it disrupts the normal body functions at certain points in time. So there was a direct correlation. As you mentioned before, the technique of a chokeout was a direct correlation, where you would have pressure on your subclavian, and you would impede the passage of blood to the brain to the point of passing out. But the art was knowing when to stop and when to apply trauma to re-stimulate the vagus nerve to re-engage you to take that deep breath. Because if you didn't know that or how to do that, you could actually kill somebody. Very easily. So, that's just one extreme example what we used to do in the old days, doing pressure points and choke outs and even locks, wrist locks and arm locks, how you'd be that close to cutting off nerve supply and blood supply to an extremity, which would impede their function. If you look at some of the MMA fightings, where they do a lot of kicking to the lower extremity, where you block off that nerve by imposing pain, and you have instability of the extremity. That's direct trauma and pain, working hand in hand together. So, I mean, it was a lot of stuff that we learned how to do. Even when we used to do sweeps, if you did a sweep wrong, you could impede the passage of blood and nerve stimuli to that extremity, where a person could not stand on that leg, and support their weight. So there's a lot of stuff that was going on.
Yes. So from the medical standpoint, and many that are in the art, they tend to study the art for and from the destructive standpoint.
Yes.
And others, you've seen it in the in Kung Fu or in various things when you talk about Shaolin and whatnot, where they teach you, it has been taught to heal or kill and heal. So many of the things that you can do to cause damage can also cause a healing process of sorts. You want to speak to any of that, like, for instance, also, as in your talk, you may mention some of that. See, martial artists have, we have the yin and yang, okay? So, well, everyone does, but the yin and yang, the hard and soft, if you don't harness the soft along with the hard, you become imbalanced, in my opinion. But with you going into the health arena, I think that is a wonderful thing. So I want to just kind of ask you to speak to that, and why is it, what may be beneficial, or why is it beneficial to have knowledge of both ends of that spectrum?
It's crucial. I would start with a very basic thing, such as breathing. You'd be surprised how important breathing techniques are in terms of your ability to function as a martial artist. Even when you're striking or when you're trying to recover from trauma, breathing is really crucial toward maintaining your yin and your yang. Not only is it crucial when we're stretching in preparation to train, but it's important when you've been touched, for lack of a better word, to how to transfer that impact of power and absorb in a way where you can redeliver it without it impeding your ability to perform. So if you remember when we used to drop down in Kibadach and we put our hands up and Soke would come by and touch us, most important thing he would say would be breathe.
Yes.
Breathe.
Yes.
To when you took the impact of the trauma, your ability to breathe through it and with it helped to absorb that impact that would disrupt your intestines or your heart rate once you was hit. So it's important to know how to breathe and when to breathe. So simple things like that are really crucial that we underestimate the significance of it.
Yes. Awesome.
Yeah.
Do you have any stories about Doc? And you can give me some stories about Soke too now. You know what I'm saying? Let's go back into the treasure chest. Come on, let me see.
Yeah. Well, some of the stories that I remember was when Doc and Professor Duncan used to get together. And, Duncan was a little more high strung, and Doc would. I remember in scenarios would be like, "If I touch you, then it's over." And I would say, "Well, first you have to touch me." That was like that. And people like I want to think of Tito, who is a great master in our day and time. I remember he used to always like tease Doc, and Doc would say, "Well, I will touch you," and you know what that means, you know. But in terms of Doc and Soke, it was always a mutual respect. There was always a mutual respect between the two of them. And at times it was very intense. And you can see the level of mutual respect between the two of them as they would work out at a level that was so far above us, we would sit in awe. And, you know, some of the stuff I used to see that would go down would like frighten me, because I would see Soka's eyes roll back, and then I'd see Musa's eyes roll back. And it was just at a mastery level that just amazed me, some of the stuff. And then we got to also bring in Professor B with his gentle touch, which was the touch of death, as I used to call it, because he would touch you in such a way that was so humble, but he had full control without exerting any type of strength and redirecting your power against him and then use it against you. So it was, you know, it was things like that you know, it's just, I sit back and I think about things like that, you know, Ron Van Cleef, when he used to come down and stuff like that. And, you know, he'd do a lot of flying stuff, and Musa would just divert and touch him. And you see Ron, and Ron would look up in awe, like, you know, what the hell happened? You know, it's stories like that, you know.
Yeah, that's great. That's great. I mean, you know, it's just this is such a beautiful platform because I get an opportunity to hear this, and for instance, with the two of us who've known each other for many years, we haven't even had the opportunity to have this kind of discussion, but because we have this platform, and listen, again, family, if you haven't shared it, we're coming close to the end, but I want you to subscribe, because this is not going to be the last time that we talk to Professor Randy, and you want to get as much as you possibly can. And we have some others that are coming in, and we have others that have already passed as it relates to being on this show. So you want to make sure that you subscribe, join this podcast right now. Don't waste any time. Join it. You know, you can always get us on our my YouTube channel. That's the official Grandmaster Anthony Muhammad YouTube channel, and you'll always get a chance to hear what we got going on and see something that's absolutely outstanding and beneficial for your knowledge. So I look forward to making sure that you can do that. So let me ask you, Professor, about students. Now there students right now listening to you, and they're appreciating what it is. But what would you say to a new student, you know, coming in? What kind of mind should he have? What should he be thinking about? You know, when today, you know, like you mentioned earlier, the people are thinking about rank, and you know, I want to be this and I want to be that. Well, what do you say that they should think about, and what are some of the things that they may come across in their training that you would warn them about, so that they don't find themselves suffering in any kind of way?
I would say, first of all, leave your ego at the door.
Excellent.
Very first thing. You're coming there to learn a new way of walking and talking and living. And you need to surrender your ego at the door and open your mind to the realm of possibilities. In doing that, you will experience some discomfort, but it's a learning discomfort. It's not a harmful discomfort, where you will learn the significance of training, maintaining a clear mindset, and to try to understand the concept for which is being shared with you as to how it may help you one day in your life. I would say, don't worry about trying being better than the next guy who's sitting next to you. Don't try to impress your instructor. Try to learn and absorb as much as you can from your instructor. And if you don't understand, don't be embarrassed to say, I don't understand.
Yes.
My favorite thing with Soke and with Musa is, Wush, I want to feel that. I want to feel that. I want to only when you feel, and you remember this, only when you feel it and touch it through yourself can you better appreciate what you're being shown and what should be felt and how to deliver the technique. So render yourself, as we used to say, uki, to experience what it is that you're being taught. And then you walk away with a better appreciation of what it is and how to apply it.
Awesome. Awesome. Great, great, great wisdom in that. There are those, let me bring this to your attention, and it's not something that, you haven't, or many people don't go through. But I always ask this question: what do you think about persons who do not respect? For instance, I respect you and appreciate you and love you, in fact, of course. But I appreciate you not just because you're a good person. I appreciate you that you walked in front of me. That you took the knocks and the pains and whatnot. So I would never want to not observe you and give you the respect that you're due. Of course, I would not want to do that with Soke and any of those who has led the way.
Right.
I want to say that, but there are those who tend to not want to give credit where credit is due,
right.
Because many didn't go through the kind of knocks that you all went through. So, maybe you could speak to that a little.
I would say, first of all, to all of my colleagues in the martial arts, regardless of your rank, the greatest honor you can give is to honor your teacher. That's the first thing. And we all in our core know who they are, despite who we may want to be and who we may want to promote to a certain level. We all know the lineage and the rite of passage for respect and honor of who our instructors are. And I would remind you, for those that are still living, you would never want to lose their respect that they have endowed to you as a teacher. So I would always walk with that in mind, that humility, love, respect, honor should always be first and foremost in our heart and our mind. The saying, what is a man of martial arts? A man of martial arts is a man who thinks at all times, possesses speed, form, technique, power, and gracefulness.
Yes, yes.
These are the tenements that we should all be living by, So I would say that for those of us who want to promote ourselves more than what we know we are, I would say I would take another look in the mirror and be respectful and honor and honesty within oneself first. Because the reality is, if you're ever tested and confronted, can you live up to that? Because your life may be truly put on the line at that time.
Yes, sir. Awesome. Man, my brother, my friend, my teacher,
My team,
boy,
my team,
yeah, come
yes,
on,
yes.
man, come on now. I'm excited. I'm excited, man. I'm so grateful to Almighty God,
Yeah.
Allah, for blessing me with the opportunity to have you as one of my guests. And I want you to know that you're gonna live as long as I'm alive.
Yes.
You're going to live and I'm going to make sure that your name is recognized in that lineage. You are one of the pioneers of this art, and we are, coming back from that time. So, the thing with me is that I don't ever want to disassociate myself with those who lead, and as well as like uh, Sister Grandmaster Veronica,
Yeah.
who has been around for a while, and I don't know what Alberta is doing in this day and time. She was back. Yeah, she was back there at that time, but I have to show honor and respect to Grandmaster Veronica for her staying involved and continuing the process of teaching the art. So I love all of you, and I respect you all, and I appreciate you all. So thank you, thank you, thank you. Any last words?
Allow me to, first of all, to give honor and respect to some of the other instructors whose names I may not have called, like Grandmaster Bill and some of the
Absolutely.
other. It was not in any form of disrespect, because we love each other, though we may not see each other, and I may not have been in touch with a lot of people over a period of time because of my craft. But we all are under the umbrella of Sanukis, and we stand as one. And I want to give honor, respect to all of the other masters or professors or instructors, that we keep in mind our heart in terms of loving each other and watching each other's back. And I also want to give recognition to you, GM, for taking this platform to make sure that the elders are acknowledged
Yes.
with respect, and knowledge is being spread throughout the field for those who don't know, and to also hold up Soki, who is our last living legend,
That's right.
to make sure that the word goes out that he is the core.
Yes.
He is the core. Let me say that again.
Come on.
Say it again, because I think with exception of him, there's nobody who's been around longer. He is the core of Sanukis.
Yes. Yes.
Okay. So,
yes, indeed.
all due respect, I want to acknowledge that and to thank you once again for allowing me the opportunity to share just a little piece of history about you, about Musa, and about some of the others. So I thank you for this opportunity, and I look forward to everybody once again on the mat.
Yes, come on now. Thank you, and again, I appreciate you. I love you, man. Everybody out there, listen. I know you enjoyed this. I mean, if you didn't, I don't even know what you should do at this point. But if you did listen to this, it was absolutely a beautiful interview. Definitely from me. I'm not talking about my questions. I'm talking about the answers that came from the questions. I'm only here to stimulate, and in stimulating, we can get something that will benefit us in our present and future. So thank you, everybody. Again, make sure you subscribe, subscribe so that we can make sure that you are constantly informed and you know what's going on with everything that we're doing on this podcast. Once again, welcome to Walking with the Master.
Good.
Every student of a master here today, you reflect your master teacher. You want to walk like him. You want to talk like her. But you start by having an object in front of you that you admire.